that vast stewardship, that person that desired community stewardship, that engineer, that purpose-driven person, the purpose has been removed recently. Warehouse approach of engineering and architecture, almost in a factory model, almost in this production factory assembly line model. It's moving away from that local stewardship to a factory production model.
Welcome once again to the 21st Century Engineer Podcast. We use the term interchangeably. Appreciate you coming back and visiting with us. We have a really interesting conversation today because I have a fellow podcaster with me.
Yes.
And Scott Zurn and I have talked on a couple of occasions, and we have very similar ideas and perspectives. And so while we're not trying to talk in the echo chamber that a lot of individuals talk in, we do have comparable perspectives on what it means to be a professional, whether that's an engineer, a pre-professional, for that matter, somebody working basically in civil infrastructure and how that manifests. Scott recognizes, as I do, being a seasoned engineer, that there's a lot of things compelling us to want to reach out to the next generation, the generations right behind us and the generation that's right behind them. I often refer to it as wanting to tell your 16-year-old self everything you've learned after all these years in the profession. And those aspects then compel us to want to talk to individuals in the STEM fields to try and reach out and help them navigate what is a very interesting workplace that for some can be a bit arduous, can even be a bit hostile. And because of Scott's perspectives and what I've heard him say, that's the reason I've asked him to come along. Miles Hansen, who's also with us here today, works with Scott, partners with Scott, has interviewed me in some occasions. We've shared thoughts, and he's our token young person for this conversation. As such, using that as kind of a framework for the conversation we're about to have, Scott, Miles, you want to elaborate on or introduce yourselves in maybe a more appropriate way?
Dennis, thanks for having us on. Yes. Well, we're happy to be here. We're excited to be here and the topic, of course. So, yeah.
Good deal. Miles, anything?
Yeah. So, I'm Miles, the marketing director for Level Design Partners and Level Engineering, and we started our podcast a while back and have really kicked things into gear as we've connected with so many designers out there, architects and engineers. There's just so many of these conversations that need to be happening. There's a lot of pain points and opportunities out there that need to be discussed. So that's our goal, and we're happy to be here with you, Dennis.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you apply a little salve to those pain points as we move through this process. Okay. Well, let me start off by asking a fundamental question. I have a perspective on what the workplace is today for people entering it and the reason for the mass exodus. There are just a horrendous number of people who get engineering degrees that don't go into the engineering profession. Architects walk away from the architectural firms as opportunities. And in engineering, it may be state agencies, it may be consulting, it may be industry. And we can't even get them to talk about going into academia. Just nobody goes on and gets a PhD and goes into an academic environment. And that's reflected by the faculty. I'm wondering what you see as the issues that are impacting the retention as founded in that current workplace we're having to deal with.
That's a big question, and it's I'm and it's actually a complicated one. I'm going to give you my perspective and kind of my study and what I'm seeing, and especially as we're interviewing people to, think about a different way of doing business as a engineer and architect and level. But we're really getting a perspective, and it's actually I think what we're starting to land on the truth, Dennis. And at least I feel like we're landing on the truth. The American engineer and architect, um, really for the history, the 300-year history of the built environment for America, the U.S. built environment, is really been this person or group of people that are stewards of infrastructure, of economy, of health, clean water, clean rivers, safe buildings. These folks for 300 years, these people we called American designer, are in my mind, the stewards of that, and they're local stewards. They've been historically for 300 years local designers in their communities and stewards of this thing we call American infrastructure, the built environment. And when I say stewards, it's been reinforced by professional engineering licenses, approvals, confirming their education, their experience through professional licensure. There's these whole systems built around 300 years, and it's really been robust. But it's been disrupted, and it's recently been disrupted. And the disruption is technology, and it's mixed us up. So we're in the middle of this change. So that vast majority of infrastructure, that vast stewardship, that person, that desired community stewardship, that engineer, that purpose-driven person, the purpose has been removed recently. The purpose has been removed. And what happened was, in my mind, is the internet got powerful enough to move CAD design from a local steward to a warehouse approach of engineering and architecture, almost in a factory model, almost in this production factory assembly line model. It's moving away from that local stewardship to a factory production model. And our engineers and our architects are wanting this stewardship career, but they're being stuffed into a factory model, and we're losing them.
And I think it's quite valid. And we generally refer to that as the commoditization of the
Mm,
professional. Uh, you
yeah.
go back just 10 years ago, and today it exists. Part of that loss is the fact that the employer doesn't necessarily allow the individual to see how the work they're doing is stewardship. It becomes more a matter of build that wall, pave that road, put in
Hmm.
that pipe, and let's do it as fast as we can. And if you prove yourself to be competent at it, I'm going to have you do 10 of them this week, as opposed to
Hmm.
being focused on one project and then being involved in that project from start to finish and seeing how it impacts lives, improves commerce. Uh, and all the things that civil infrastructure does, it is being lost. And at the same time, I think that probably more than ever, certainly over the past couple decades, there's been an emphasis on high school graduates to seek servant leadership position, to
Mm,
be of service to a community.
yeah.
I know high schools won't even let you graduate unless you have so many service hours, and so you
Yeah.
come out wanting to be of service, and many companies won't let you be, at least not in an obvious way. Some do, and I think it's a valid point. Though I'll also have to say, you may not have heard me say it, but I've said it 1,000 times. Who was it that built the wrong side of the tracks? And it was
Mm,
civil engineers.
Yeah.
We designed the tracks in a way that we were only concerned about one thing: keeping the economy down and getting the train through town, and we ignored the socioeconomic impacts of the railroad we were building. And we can't do that anymore. Don't want to do that anymore. So
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
certainly
Hmm.
part of it. With this insurgence of technology and the transportability, the fact that I can now get somebody to do the drawings, do the structural analysis, in many ways do the system design offshore. That's the term we oftentimes use. Sitting,
Yeah, I mean, like literally, what was it last week? Chevron, British Petroleum announced that a majority of their engineering was going to go to India. A vast majority, almost wholesale, they committed that their engineering was going to be in India.
right?
That's what I read. I don't know if that's the truth, but that's what I read. And one would wonder, Dennis, one would wonder, um, what does that look like when the talent for accessing our energy, the brain trust, the engineering, and that knowledge base isn't in the United States anymore. And and one would say that exact mentality is also applying to civil disciplines throughout our country. Is we are now starting to see two-thirds of our American engineers not staying in engineering.
Right.
And that knowledge base, this is our built world. This is our economy. This is our public health and safety. That knowledge base, what happens if it's not here? What does that look like?
Well, we become much like manufacturing. We become dependent on another country to provide it for us, which basically moves us into the consumer category, not the producer category.
Hmm.
And that's not a economically sustainable environment. But it's also not one that's rewarding. And I think we need to look at ways of capturing that. Let's pivot a little bit and talk about the
Sure.
future of the profession and how individuals involved in this right now in the industry right now and are coming into industry, how they can play a role in being impactful, being a servant leader,
Mm.
uh, changing lives through the actions we do as civil infrastructure designers. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I have lots of thoughts. One of the things that's my career, my 5 decades is there. I find the future of civil disciplines and working for our communities in a 6% annual growth in the United States. I find this profession one of the most important professions and exciting professions in the future. You look at global climate change, you look at the challenges of that, uh, green infrastructure, better ideas, reusing our existing infrastructure, finding better ways to maintain it. It's just so exciting, the future of this, what we do, what we call civil engineering, is just this increasingly challenging, interesting, technically important and rewarding community service. I just find it just to be very, very, very wonderful outlook. For our STEM students, I would say, wow, this is the place to be. This is the place to be.
If you want to be impactful, if you want
Hmm.
to make change, and let's recognize, going back to something you said early on, it's still true about our profession, is that you have to have a certain tactile relationship to the project. You have to know the community. And that's not
Hmm.
something written in a report by an AI that you're reading on the other side of the planet. It's getting to know people through public meetings or by being on the site and talking with the owner and the
Yep.
clients, the people who are actually going to use the facility. And
Yep.
that tactile relationship gives us an insight into what right answers are and what wrong answers are.
Hmm.
It's not just a matter of whether or not a tank's the right size. It's whether or not a tank is required at all. And I don't mean a military device.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm an
Right.
environmental engineer, so I
Right.
immediately moved to wastewater components.
Right. Right.
Could have
Right.
said a sludge bed, but that'd have been a whole lot less tasteful. Uh, so, so I agree. There's some real opportunities here, and I think part
So
of it that
exciting.
they have to realize they're going to have to be smart. They're going to have to embrace this technology, and they're going to have to be what I've often referred to as a subject area expert. They're going to have to insert themselves in
Hmm.
and explain. Going back to what you said, if we offshore, again, the word I used earlier, if we're going to offshore all of this work that we could be doing here,
Hmm.
then what do we know about the education of those people? What do we know about the ethics of those people? What do we know about the fiscal responsibility those people feel with regard to what they design? Where's
The
the
key.
accountability
Yeah.
associated with what they produce?
Yeah. When me and you that have done this work for many decades is that's concerning, right? That
Absolutely.
just that right there is concerning. That word I used was the stewardship to our community. That relationship is actually the key to me. Is that engineer and architect designing in their community? If you take that away, and it's and that stewardship is just commoditized overseas, I think you get a different outcome than one of the greatest infrastructures in the world, the greatest economies, the safest place to live, uh, the clean water, the clean rivers, the clean environment, the safe roads, the safe buildings. That starts to erode if you don't have that stewardship role and it's commoditized overseas.
Well, I agree, and it comes in part because what I'm designing isn't something I have to live with
Yep.
if it's being done overseas. I'm
Yep.
designing for them. My job here is to design something, get paid, and do it for the least cost.
Yep.
And whereas here, it'd be a matter of my reputation, my license even rests on what I'm putting together, and I'm going to have to live in this community when the project's over. So it's not just a matter of reputation; it's the fact that my connection to this community will either be strengthened or weakened.
Hmm. I
Accountability.
remember. Yep. I remember working for public sector. I was at that time. I was a staff engineer in public works, and there was a intersection I was very concerned about, and that intersection I was concerned about it every day, and I drove that concern to improve or signalize that and get it safer. That
Good for you.
drive, that drive is throughout my career, and my peers, my other engineers, my consultants in my community, the staffs, that always was the way we thought day to day.
And that's great. I mean, the reverse is, and unfortunately, it exists here, and I've seen it in various locations. But the way I'll frame it in the broad terms is that intersection would have to have had X number of fatalities
Yep.
before the appropriate agency would have looked at
Yep.
signalizing it, or if
Yep.
signalizing was even the solution to prevent additional fatalities.
Right. Yeah. The
And
warrant.
and
The
that's
warrant.
wrong. We should be intelligent enough to look at it and say this intersection needs to be changed, either
Yep.
through signalization or redesign or whatever. And
Yep.
and it shouldn't have to cost somebody their life to make the point.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think the disconnect is what I'm hearing is like one of the biggest issues, um, that if we continue down this path of going overseas, we'll start to feel it more and more. The disconnect leads to lack of accountability and care for the community, the local aspect of it, which leads to lack of interest, mass exodus, so on and so forth. And I think coupled with that is the fear of AI and all this technology, and things are changing faster than ever. We actually just did an episode yesterday for our podcast,
We did. Yep.
and we were exploring what um, kind of a day in the life of an engineer in 2040 could look like. And we did some research and kind of figured out, we used AI to do some research of what this could look like and kind of paint this picture. And it's really easy to be worried about losing your job or being irrelevant in the future. But you've probably heard that you won't lose your job to AI, you'll lose your job to someone who knows how to use AI. And I think that applies just everywhere. Like, this is such an incredible opportunity when you look at
Mhm.
the technology and what you can do, how it can just help you do what you're already doing
Yep.
so much better and have more fun with it.
Yeah.
I think that's the perspective we have to take.
Well, for me, we go back 35 plus or minus years, and I was designing models to track the migration of contaminants in soil. And then that science became mature enough that those computer models became packages. We call them
Mhm.
applications today. And now
Mhm.
all of a sudden, I just had to buy a package, not an expert, to come in and design a custom design. I make a few tweaks, run the model, I get an answer. Life's good. Except, is the answer right? Well, I don't know, but I got an answer that I like.
Yeah.
So, and people began to accept it. We pushed back against that and started showing
Yeah.
how they weren't right. And then you move to the next level about that same period of time. CAD came along. Well, it came along because we couldn't get CAD operators. Excuse me, we couldn't get draftsmen. The person would sit down on a drafting board and draft, let alone the time it took. We just need to get past that. So CAD came along. It was going to replace the entire world. Of course, it didn't. And then structural design modules, design programs, now apps have come along, STAAD, RISA, whichever one you happen to like. And that was going to replace all the structural engineers in the world. Didn't
Yeah.
happen, you
Yeah.
know. But where the role of the engineer is, and the design professional, and I'm incorporating architects in this too, is that expertise. You
Mhm.
get a license based on education, examination, and experience. And
Mhm.
that experience piece allows you to come in and say, this is what I expect. This is what I anticipate. This is how I analyze to see if I got garbage in, garbage out for my computer program, or whether I've got a bona fide design that I want to really consider applying. And,
Mhm.
and that can be exciting. And as I think you said, Miles, well, I know you said, as you said, the people that are going to succeed in this are the ones that take that technology that we're dealing with today, develop it into something that benefits society and in turn then benefits them, as opposed to those who are, as you'll probably have heard on social media or in any of the variety of TED talks, the concept of there's that group out there that would still be using rotary phones if they could find them.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, they work, but no. Okay,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
just say no.
Yeah.
Just because it's not broke doesn't mean it doesn't need to be replaced.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we're going back to the youth and the loss of. It's hard to find the real data, and that's one thing I've had a hard time with, Dennis, as we created a level to create a new way of working for engineers and architects. It's hard to find data here, but it appears to look like 2/3 of our young engineers are quit engineering altogether after they go in the workplace in America.
Oh yeah, I'll do some digging. Roughly a third of engineers don't even enter the workplace. They get an engineering degree, come out, and go. I'm going to go into marketing. I'm going to go into
Do something else.
business, something else.
Yep.
Mhm.
And
And
so
what
you,
it,
and the
it,
other third that you're talking about leaves because of the workplace environment.
because of the workplace. And then what they say is what they say is interesting.
Mhm.
Um, they say um, they were overworked. They were lacked mentoring in
Yes.
their skill set. They say
Yeah.
they were under challenged, micromanaged, and toxic work environments. And uh, a- and we looked at that closely and said, "What is that? What is what is that?" What
Yeah.
is what is that work environment that has them say those things?
Well, it goes back to something I heard one of your guests talk about here recently.
Mm,
And this is my experience. I had a young lady that graduated from my program 25 years ago. Sharp lady. Uh, Went to work for a consulting firm in, I'm going to say Tennessee. I'm not going to get into particulars, or they may come back to haunt me. But she went to work in a consulting firm in Tennessee. 6 months later, she's working for another consulting firm in a different community in Tennessee. And 6 months later, she's working for another consulting firm on the other side of the state. And 6 months later,
mm.
she's back. And I wrote her. I said, without mentioning her name, I wrote her. I said, "What's going on? Yeah,
Yeah.
this jumping around is going to give you a reputation of not being stable. People,
Mhm.
they're investing in you to come in and work. Why aren't you staying long enough to return that investment?" Her answer was clear and succinct. I've got my skill set. I come in, I go to work, I'm ready to go to work on day one. My sneakers are on, I hit the ground running, and they find quickly that I'm extremely competent in doing a particular job. And from that
Mm.
day on, that's the only job I'm ever given. I'm
I'm
given that
stuck with it.
job today, I'm giving it tomorrow, I'm giving it next week. And in 6 months, I'm bored to death. I want
Mhm.
new, I want exciting, I want impact,
Mhm.
I want
Mm.
change. And they're not letting me do it. So I changed
Mhm.
jobs and find they do the same thing. She ended up actually giving up on engineering, moved out of
Mm,
Tennessee and started a business of her own doing something totally unrelated to engineering. But I think that's part of it. That
that's such a great
commoditization. This
point.
was the
The
early days
commoditization.
of
Yep. Yep.
commoditization. If
Yep.
I find that you can do something very efficiently with high accuracy and very quickly, that's in my generation that was bulletproof. Boy, you had a job for life.
Right.
Yeah,
But
right.
today that doesn't fly. Because I'm
Because
looking
it's
for
it's
more than that. I'm looking for more than a job. I'm looking for a profession. I'm looking for a career.
exactly. And it's exploited, right? It's pushed to the limit. It's cubicle machine
Oh, totally.
factory style.
Yeah,
Let's just get scale that
yeah,
skill, um, and that's just like you said, boredom. I mean,
right.
the impact, the lack of connection. It's not sustainable. It's not good.
No, and I go back to Scott's, and this is me, and I know each of you do it in the various venues and opportunities you provide. American Society of Civil Engineers has a mentoring program, and I've been involved in it for years, not decades, because then lasted it all. But I've been the better part of a decade. I've been mentoring young professionals, postgraduates, post BS, post MS, in the workplace, and I've mentored a lot of people over. But one thing, I had one young lady who was working in an environment who was being ignored and passed over and overworked. She was carrying her load and part of somebody else's load.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I looked at her and said, "You know what your solution is?" And she said, "What?" I said, "Leave. You don't have. You're too good for this.
Yeah.
They don't deserve you. Go find another job. Somebody else will love you to death." And she did, and they do.
Yeah.
And
And
there are
we
opportunities out there. You don't have to put up with this crap anymore.
but there's not enough of them. So that's one of the things where I think when Miles and I look at this, what's going on with this with us, I want to say with us and infrastructure, what we're landing on, the truth that we're seeing is the structures of A&E business has technologies moved it away from who we are as people. And it used to be you could easily become an entrepreneur in this country. It used to be you could open up your own shop. It's no longer the case. The studies, the data is clear. 60% of your time in an entrepreneurism is running your business. It's not actually doing the engineering.
Right.
And you're asking an engineer that's passionate about engineering to do 50 or 60% of their work, and the capital needed to start your own company, forget it. It's not a realistic thing alternative anymore.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I don't want to toot our own horn, but that's there needs to be new business systems like Level that offers a new way of working to solve these structures that aren't working for us as engineers, as individuals. It needs to shift before this brain trust slips through our fingers. This knowledge transfer doesn't happen. That's been happening for 300 years. We've been mentoring and transferring our engineering knowledge to our youth and our firms and our communities for 300 years.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we're not. And
Well,
that needs to shift.
as you know, Scott, Miles, the fundamental engineering model that we work under is 120 years old, and it involves 4 years of formal academic training, followed by 4 years of what I'm going to frame as apprenticeship under
Mm-hmm.
professional. And so that 4 years, and that's the reason why it's 4 years before you get your professional engineering license.
Yep.
It's 5 years for architects, but what was supposed to happen in that next 4 years of the 8-year training program was what you're talking about: the mentoring, the tutelage, the non-academic skills being developed, the applications, the exposure, the client relationships, the management. And what's happened today is what's happened for the past 20 years is the industrialization of the civil workplace has consulting firms and agencies as well coming in saying, we want you to teach your students to be good communicators, well, or better financial managers, or we want them to have project management skills. And
Yeah.
in addition to the fact that we've just cut the number of hours out of your program by 15 to 20.
Yeah.
And it's like, it can't be done, folks. And at the same time, I'm just looking for people that I can put in that cubicle that Miles mentioned, put them to
Yeah.
work and crank out the projects and make me money. And
Yeah.
part of that is that the firms aren't run by engineers; they're run by business people.
Well,
with
there
a
you go.
business mindset.
That's it right there. I tell Miles all the time in tongue in cheek, but I'm like, Miles, really what we're doing here at Level is taking back engineering away from the business people and putting it back in the hands of engineers. That's all we're doing at Level.
Or
We're
at least trying to. Yeah.
taking it away from the business people.
Well, and it's happened to the other professions as well. Attorneys
Mhm.
be less so, but to some degree, the medical profession's gone through the same thing. They're
Yep.
run by HMOs and insurance companies, and the doctors frustrated as all get out.
Yep.
The nursing profession sees the same thing going on. Engineering, architecture, same deal.
Mhm.
The professions are being commoditized. It's why people are walking away from them. Well, we've just elaborated for some time on the gloom and doom, and I think our goal was here to try and entice people to come into this profession.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's flip the script, as it were, just a little bit, and talk about the opportunities to be
Yeah.
impactful. What is it? What should a person who wants to come into this profession or sees the opportunities this profession that we've kind of have shown a light on to varying degrees? If somebody
Mm.
wants to come in and be a professional in a designer, a planner, a contractor, for them, or just somebody working in an agency environment where they're maintaining the infrastructure, what do you see there they need to be aware of, and how are they going to be successful?
Great question. We are.
Oh, I get to ask the questions. You have
Uh,
to answer them.
well, I believe strongly in the American ideal that if a need arises or change is required, that the American system is so well adapt to just handling that or adjusting. So we're currently in this trend of, it's cheaper to send engineering over there. And, we talked about it. We've already recognized that's not working. There's already things in motion like Level and other models go, no, 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 no. That we're doing something else. And I really think that that's just a given. There's going to be new ways of working for the engineer and architect, that workplace that they're not happy with right now is actually don't let that distract you. That's going to get fixed just because this is America. That's going to that's going to happen. There's going to be Level. There's going to be other entities like Level. There's going to be other work environments that they're going to fix that. That's just the American way. So that said, don't worry about that so much. That work environment's going to get fixed. But what about the work? this is a fascinating topic to me. Is this is never going away. Civil infrastructure, the built environment, human convenience, I call it. Miles hears this a lot from me. Engineering is satisfying, catering, stewardship of human convenience and causing that human convenience and economy and protecting the environment while satisfying human convenience. That doesn't go away ever. This is such a wonderful career. This is, and it's just, you can devote yourself to this career and it'll never be stolen. It will always be there the next day, which is so exciting. I mean, you can't say that about a lot of things, right?
Mhm.
Amen.
Yeah.
And, and
Yeah, I agree with
technology
you.
is just going to help us.
I
So
mean,
the stronger technology gets, AI, softwares. I was just, in a project yesterday, just blown away. Uh, that just helps us get it done better and faster, and so we can meet those human conveniences at a more efficient, accelerated, and less impactful way to the environment. That's all that means.
yeah.
The work doesn't go
Yeah.
away.
At the same time, I hope we as a profession, and particularly the young people coming behind us, don't allow the technology of the past to limit the creation of solutions for the future.
Mm,
Mm.
And so, as I've said, using 19th century technology that was updated in the 20th century to build 21st century technology is doomed to fail.
yeah.
We
Yeah.
need to be looking at building 21st century technology infrastructure that lasts well into the 22nd century. That's robust, resilient, sustainable, serviceable, retrofittable,
Mm,
reclaimable, whatever, however you want to do it.
mm,
And that's going to take individuals that are coming behind us willing to try new things, not just pulling the design from the last facility off the shelf and changing a few dimensions because it's cheaper to do it and it'll still work, but look for a way to make that design better, or for that matter, start all over and come up with
Mm.
a new design for a new
love that.
approach that's
Love that.
better than anything we've ever done before.
Love
And
that.
the
Yeah.
opportunity to do that exists
Yeah.
as long as
Love
you
that.
know what you're doing and have the leadership skills to stand behind it and push it forward.
Yeah. Love it.
That's a great
You asked
point.
you asked the question. Is what does a person need? And I would say, involve your mind early, into challenges that relate to problem solving, and then ask yourself, does my mind really enjoy problem solving? And if it does, delve into it deeper, and really work on your creativity, and not just the math problem. Don't
Yeah.
necessarily bury yourself in the math. It's a tool. In my mind, work on your creativity of problem solving. Put yourself in situations as a young person, to get good at problem solving, getting creative in problem solving, and work on that, and work on your people skills. Engineering, architecture, built world is a people business. It's just not always technical. It's also
Yeah.
this wonderful people skill that you need to also develop too.
And we're not taught that.
We're
It's
not
it's
taught that.
so we see the other side of that, and we
Yeah.
have to, catch up and read and develop that. But I wanted to say that the word entrepreneurship and all the words around it gets thrown around a lot,
Mm,
and it kinda had its moment. It was this new thing that a lot of people tried and a lot of people failed, has this appeal to it, and the appeal is, "Whoa, I get to choose what I work on. I get to, choose what skills and how I do it, and that there's no ceiling, and I have flexibility, and I'm my own boss," and all these really cool things that come along with it, but it's really hard,
yeah.
right? And you see it in other industries where, with all these tools and resources now, anyone can pretty much start any sort of business, right? It's just all the other little things that can they make it last. And so I think one of the coolest, you can do this at any age, at any stage of your career. One of the coolest kind of mindset shifts that you can make to thrive long term is to think entrepreneurial. Whether you're in a firm, on your own, in school, it doesn't matter. have an entrepreneurial mindset where you're taking on the ownership, you're looking at the problems and asking yourself questions and figuring out how to solve those and working on people skills, working on like understanding marketing just high level, which is really just people. You're just understanding people and making the connection. Getting that field experience. Scott always says, I can tell how good an engineer is by looking at their boots or their shoes. It's like, get out there, do real world stuff as much as you can,
Yeah.
team up with people. Collaboration is a big part of what we do. It's one of our pillars. Like, have a team, bounce ideas off each other, meet weekly, bi-weekly, uh, share that passion that you have for this work, and then obviously leverage AI. Lean into it, take courses, and learn stuff outside of the norm.
That's your access to get out of these factory cubicle systems, right? If you get those skill sets. Yep. Absolutely.
It really is. And I, the, I'll add one facet to that. Of course, having been in a variety of environments where I was the boss, you have to realize in the entrepreneurial world that once you become the boss, then everybody else is your boss, your client, your workers.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
you're answering to everybody else on the planet, and hopefully some people at home too. But it's finding that opportunity. It's that desire. I go back to what Scott was saying. It's finding that opportunity to engage and manifest your servant desires, the service desires, if you rather, to be a change agent, to be impactful, and this profession provides a lot of opportunities for those that want to seize upon it.
Boy,
Guys,
does
we're
it.
gonna have to wrap this up, I'm afraid. I mean, we could talk for the next couple days, but
Yeah.
time is what it is. I really appreciate you being with us and sharing your
Yeah.
perspectives. May have to do it again sometime, but I'm going to give you kind of the second to last words. I'll close out. But any last thoughts either of you have before we wrap this up for today?
Yeah, sure. There's momentum in talking about infrastructure on our podcasts. We infrastructure wise.
Cast again, Scott.
Oh, what's our podcast called, Miles?
Level Design Podcast. The Level Design Podcast. Scott
Okay,
just shows up and
I'm
I
not going
just
to plug
blows
showed
it.
my
I'm
up.
mind
going to help you do
he doesn't need to know what it's called because he just blows my
I just
mind every
showed
week.
up.
But
it. It's like
Yeah,
knowing your own phone number.
yeah, exactly. What? We don't talk about it enough, and for those of you, that are listening, I would just say, hey, this is this is such a big topic. You own more infrastructure than each American owns 2 to 3 times more infrastructure than they own personal property, um, and it's a big topic. It's the center of our economy and our health and our American way of being. It's such a fun topic. Share it with everybody. Share the podcast. Share all the engineering, the stewards of this thing that is key to our life in America. And just delve into it, enjoy it, share it. It's so much more interesting than it appears. It's so complex. And is so challenging, and it's just this thing we don't talk about enough. So for
yeah,
anybody listening, it's just an invitation to Dennis's podcasts, our podcasts, anything engineering, anything infrastructure. It's the coolest thing in the world, and it's this hidden gem that we really want to share, and not forget about, not be entitled about, and to actually be proud of again in America and focus on it.
Which is why we're here. Miles?
Yep.
yeah. I mean, you pretty much covered it. We're connected with it every day, but it's not talked about enough. Dennis, what you're doing here, I'm really excited for your podcast because with your wealth of knowledge and experience and the people you're going to have on here, the conversations you're going to have, I mean, it's in such alignment with what we've been trying to do for years. And I feel like it's starting to really pick up steam. So I'm just excited and grateful that you're doing this and to be here.
Well, and I'm excited and appreciative of what Scott and you are doing, Miles, uh, because you started the conversation. Scott said it repeatedly. We have to keep the conversation going. And
Yeah.
we have to share it when we can. We have to put it out there so that people maybe ignore us the first time, but maybe not the second or the third. And
Mm.
eventually they're not going to be able to ignore us. And
Yep.
that's when we'll turn the ship, and start having real impact. And some of these problems we've talked about will start going away. We'll take ownership of this profession again instead of letting the business people take ownership of it. And at the end of the day, the public and the country will be better served.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of the Infrastructure